Most people never notice the janitor. Not really. They pass by, eyes on their phones, coffee in hand, too busy thinking about deadlines, meetings, next steps. But one Monday morning in downtown Fort Worth, Texas, the entire trajectory of Halberg International was about to be rewritten. Because someone did notice. The someone? Jonathan Kellerman, CEO, Ivy League alum, global logistics guru, a man who had spent the past 2 decades expanding markets and shaking hands in every continent but Antarctica. His world ran on efficiency, data, and instinct. And that morning, instinct made him stop dead in his tracks. It started with a sound. Not just any sound, but language. Mandarin, fluid and confident, spoken with the ease of a native. Kellerman turned, expecting one of the international consultants to be on site early, but the voice wasn't coming from a suit and tie. It was coming from a woman in burgundy janitor scrubs, her hair tied neatly in twists, calmly giving directions to a lost older gentleman at the lobby touchscreen. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy, but there was a clarity in her tone that made people pause. He watched her gently gesture toward the elevators. The man nodded, visibly relieved, and then, just like flipping a switch, she turned and addressed a delivery driver in Spanish, helped a vendor in French, and smiled as she directed mislabeled packages like it was the most natural thing in the world. Kellerman stood frozen for a moment, a pinch of shame creeping into his chest. This woman, who he vaguely recognized from late-night walks through the office halls, had never once stood out. Until now. Until she shattered the unspoken expectations built into the company's polished glass walls. "Excuse me?" he said, stepping forward. She turned toward him, alert but composed. "Yes, sir?" "That was Mandarin, right?" "Yes, sir," she replied softly. "And you speak Spanish? French?" She nodded, matter of fact. "Also Portuguese, Arabic, German, Swahili, Italian, and I can read Latin, though I don't count that." Kellerman blinked. "You're telling me you speak 9 languages?" "Yes, sir," she said, without pride, without apology. There was something about the way she said it that made his throat tighten. No arrogance, no plea for recognition, just truth. Clean and clear, like a stone dropped into still water. "What's your name?" "Naomi Atwater." "Miss Atwater? Would you mind coming with me? I'd like to talk." She hesitated, not out of fear but out of long-practiced caution, the kind of hesitance that came from years of being invisible. Then she nodded. "All right." As they rode the elevator up to the executive floor, Naomi broke the silence. "I've worked here for 13 years. Never thought I'd be invited up." He glanced at her. "You might be surprised how fast things can change." He didn't know it yet, but he was right. Everything was about to change. Not just for Naomi Atwater, but for everyone in that building. What no one knew that morning, what no one expected, was that the woman who cleaned the floors would soon be sitting at the table where decisions were made. That she'd uncover things the software had missed, that she'd become the bridge between cultures, languages, and even the invisible walls that kept people stuck in place. But for now, it was just 2 people, a CEO and a janitor. In an elevator, rising, the door to the executive suite slid open with a quiet hiss. The air smelled different up there. Leather, citrus polish, and something else Naomi couldn't quite name. Wealth, maybe. Or the illusion of it. Kellerman led her through a hallway of silent glances. His assistant blinked twice, seeing Naomi beside him, but said nothing as they passed. Inside his glass-walled corner office, he gestured for her to sit. She perched on the edge of the chair, careful not to touch anything she didn't need to. Her eyes scanned the space. World map behind his desk, photos of his kids on the credenza, espresso cups stacked with symmetry. She didn't seem intimidated, just observant. "So," Kellerman began, leaning forward, "I'll be honest, I didn't expect this conversation today." Naomi gave a small nod. "Me neither. But I just heard you switch between 3 languages like you were flipping a light switch. I have to ask, how did someone like you end up mopping our floors?" Her eyes flicked to the window, then back to him. "You want the real answer?" Couldn't have asked otherwise. She rubbed her palms together, warming up not for the cold, but for the truth. "I was born in Akron. Dad was a machinist, Mom a home health aide. They didn't have much, but they believed in learning like it was gospel. I got into the University of Cincinnati on a full ride, majored in linguistics, Planned to go into diplomacy. She paused. Then Mom got sick. I dropped out halfway through grad school, came home to care for her. Dad passed 6 months later. Everything spiraled. I had a baby. No money. No support. I took whatever job I could find. Grocery stores, warehouse night shifts. Eventually, someone offered me this cleaning job here. The hours worked with my daughter's school schedule, so I stayed. And the languages, she smiled, a little sad. Didn't stop learning. Borrowed books, watched subtitled films, talked to whoever would answer me in their native tongue. It's the only thing that still made me feel like myself. Kellerman didn't speak. He just listened. And no one ever asked, she added. They saw the mop, not the mind. That line hit him harder than she probably meant it to. They saw the mop, not the mind. He sat back, exhaling slowly. He'd spent millions on international consultants, cultural audits, and misfired marketing campaigns, yet right under his nose had been someone who not only understood the world, but spoke it fluently. Have you ever worked as a translator? He asked. She shrugged. Unofficially, at clinics, schools, helped people fill out forms, talked to doctors, but nothing formal. I couldn't afford the certifications. My daughter needed shoes more than I needed a certificate. Kellerman nodded slowly. Where is she now? 26. Nurse in Tampa. Paid her way through school. Stubborn like her mama. He smiled. It didn't feel like CEO and janitor anymore. Just two people, two stories. But the moment didn't last, because the rest of the building did still see her as a janitor. Later that afternoon, Kellerman brought her into a meeting with Brazilian executives whose translator had canceled last minute. Naomi slipped into the room, calm but quiet. Within minutes, she had them laughing, joking, listening. The atmosphere shifted like someone opened a window in a stale room. When it was over, one of the men turned to Kellerman and said, "Where did you find her?" He smiled. "Right here." By the next morning, whispers were everywhere. The janitor? That's who translated for the Brazilians? She speaks Portuguese? Since when? Maybe she's like CIA or something. I heard she's got some secret degree. Some were impressed, some confused, others annoyed. In the break room, 2 marketing assistants leaned over salads. "I have a master's in international business," one whispered. "Been waiting 2 years for promotion. She scrubs sinks and walks into C-level meetings." "Maybe she's just gifted," the other muttered. "Or maybe Kellerman's trying to look progressive, box checking." By the end of the week, the murmur became a current. Naomi felt it, the way people looked up a second too late when she entered a room, the polite nods that didn't reach their eyes, the way some conversations paused when she walked by, and yet she said nothing, did nothing. But something was building. On Friday morning, Kellerman asked her to come back up. He didn't say why. This time, even the elevator ride felt different, slower, denser. Naomi straightened her shoulders and walked through the hall as if she belonged there. Because somewhere deep inside, she knew she did. But the next meeting wouldn't be with Kellerman. It would be with someone who didn't see her gift at all. And she was about to find out just how much her presence threatened the status quo. The office on the 17th floor was nothing like Kellerman's. It was colder, sterile, less light, more edge. Naomi stepped in quietly and found herself facing Eleanor Craig, a name that carried weight like a warning label. Eleanor had been on the board since the 90s. Known for her steel-grass suits and sharper opinions, she had built her reputation dismantling bad decisions with 3 words. Who approved of this? She didn't look up right away, just tapped a pen slowly against a folder with Naomi's name printed in stark block letters. "Sit," she said flatly. Naomi did. Eleanor finally raised her eyes. "So, Miss Atwater." "Miss," Naomi corrected gently. Eleanor blinked once. "Miss Atwater. I've reviewed your file. No college degree, no corporate training, no leadership certifications, and until last week your job was janitorial?" "That's correct," Naomi said, calm as still water. Eleanor folded her hands. "Then help me understand how someone with that background is now managing international affairs for a multinational corporation." Naomi didn't flinch. "Because I speak the languages, because I understand the cultures, because I've already corrected translation errors in 2 vendor contracts and helped finalize a verbal agreement with our Brazilian partners, and because I've been doing the work no one noticed for years." Eleanor's jaw tensed. "You think this company runs on instinct and charisma?" "No, ma'am," Naomi said evenly. "I think it should run on results." For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the HVAC system. Then Eleanor sat back, steepling her fingers. "You're a gamble," she said coldly. Naomi smiled faintly. "I'm used to that. My whole life's been one." The meeting ended with no further words. Eleanor closed the folder. Naomi stood, nodded politely, and walked out. But she didn't go back to her office, not right away. Instead, she walked straight out of the building, across the street, and sat on a worn bench facing the glass tower she had scrubbed clean for 13 years. She stared at it, this symbol of success that had once looked unreachable. She remembered the nights she'd wept in supply closets, the mornings she showed up early just to eat breakfast in silence before everyone arrived. She remembered the first time she taught her daughter how to say thank you in 4 languages. Her phone buzzed. It was her daughter. "Hey, Ma," the voice chirped. "You okay?" Naomi hesitated, then nodded to herself. "Yeah, just needed to hear your voice. You sure?" "I'm sure." They talked about nothing. Groceries, a new movie, her daughter's dog chewing up the couch again. But when the call ended, Naomi felt lighter, grounded. And when she stood up, it wasn't just her feet that carried her back. It was every sacrifice, every forgotten hour, every moment she'd ever been underestimated. Back upstairs, the storm was already brewing. By Monday morning, word had gotten out. Naomi Atwater had been grilled by Eleanor Craig and hadn't backed down. And to everyone's surprise, she showed up early, hair tied back, in a soft beige blazer, clipboard in hand. She opened her office door, found a sticky note on the whiteboard. "We see you." No name, no flourish, just 3 words that meant the world. That afternoon, she took a call with the German office. No translator, no hesitation, just fluid communication and sharp diplomacy. Someone passed by and peeked into her office, then quietly backed away like they'd stumbled into something sacred. Naomi was not just filling a seat. She was changing the air in the room. Even the skeptics were forced to reconsider. People started dropping by, not just for language help, but for advice, confidence, guidance. A marketing intern named Bao, too shy to speak up in meetings, asked her, "How did you learn all those languages?" She smiled, 1 word at a time, same way you will. Late one evening, Kellerman stopped by her office. "How's day 1?" he asked. Naomi leaned back in her chair. "I've had worse." "Victor give you trouble?" She raised an eyebrow. "He tried." He smiled. "You handled Eleanor better than most execs do." Naomi paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why me? You could have just given me a bonus and gone on with your day." Kellerman leaned against the doorframe. "Because I saw myself in you." She tilted her head. "You were a janitor?" "No," he chuckled. "But I was invisible once. People assumed I didn't belong. I came from nowhere, too. And now I get to decide who gets seen." Naomi looked down at her hands. "I won't lie. I'm nervous." "Good," he said. "Means you care." She looked up. "People are going to hate this. They'll get over it, or they won't. Either way, we're moving forward." He straightened, about to leave, then added quietly, "You've got a story, Naomi, a real one. Now you've got a platform." She sat there long after he'd left, thinking, remembering. And then, slowly, she opened her drawer and placed her old janitor badge inside. Not to forget, but to remember exactly what it took to get here. But this story wasn't just hers anymore, and someone, somewhere, was already planning to push back. By Friday morning, a new nameplate gleamed outside the 12th floor office. Naomi Atwater, Cultural Liaison, International Affairs, black letters, brushed steel, clean, official, permanent. Kellerman didn't call a press conference. He didn't pose for photos. He simply sent out a company-wide email. It was short, clear, and unapologetically direct. Naomi was not a feel-good story. She was not charity. She was the most qualified person for the job. But not everyone bought it. Some managers muttered under their breath. Slack channels lit up with whispers. "This is PR optics. It's a trend, nothing more. Let's see how long she lasts." Naomi didn't respond. She didn't need to. She went to work. She corrected decades-old translation errors in vendor contracts, mistakes that had cost the company hundreds of thousands in foreign tax loopholes. She simplified negotiation terms for the Dubai expansion, and when a North African deal stalled, she stepped into the room in a soft blazer and greeted the Moroccan partners in fluent derision. That moment changed everything. Because when someone speaks your language, your exact dialect, you don't just hear words. You hear respect. After the meeting, One of the Moroccan executives approached her quietly and touched his chest, a traditional gesture of deep thanks. "No one has ever done that," he said. "Not in our language, not like that." Naomi just nodded. "You matter. That's all." By week's end, Kellerman made another decision, quiet, deliberate. He had the company's main training room renamed. The plaque that once read Leadership Hall now read simply the Atwater Room. No speeches, no champagne, just a small sign that said more than 100 memos ever could. Naomi didn't cry when she saw it, she just stared for a long time, then exhaled slowly. Later that afternoon, she found a sealed envelope on her desk. No return address, just her name on the door, and you see, inside was a handwritten note. "I used to think I'd be invisible forever, but today I stood a little taller because of you. Thank you." No signature, just proof. People were watching, people who needed to see what was possible. But not every door stays open without resistance. Late Thursday, Naomi was called to another meeting, not by Kellerman, by legal. Apparently, a complaint had been filed. Anonymous, of course. Fast-tracked promotions, lack of credentials, hiring bias. All veiled attacks, no names. But the intent was clear. Someone wanted her out. The head of legal asked pointed questions with polite skepticism. "How would you defend your qualifications in a court of internal policy? Do you believe you're receiving special treatment?" Naomi kept her voice level. "I believe I'm doing work most people here didn't realize needed doing, until I did it." The next day, Kellerman walked into her office and said only this: "They're scared. That means you're doing something right." She nodded. "But I don't want to fight my whole life just to stand still." "You're not standing still," he said. "You're building stairs for the next person." And she was. By month's end, Naomi proposed a pilot program, Voice Inside, a talent development initiative for overlooked employees in non-desk roles. Language training, public speaking workshops, shadow days with senior leaders. Visibility. The board hesitated. Eleanor Craig raised one arched brow. Kellerman didn't flinch. "It's not optional," he said. "It's overdue." The program launched in silence, but it spread like fire. Within weeks, interns started shadowing warehouse workers. Delivery drivers were offered English immersion courses. A cafeteria cook named Mateo gave a TED Stride talk about food logistics and got invited to a supply chain summit in Boston. And Naomi, she was invited to speak. At a national leadership symposium in Cincinnati, she stood on stage in front of 700 executives. She didn't open with credentials, she opened with truth. "I was never just a janitor. I was fluent, I was ready, but no one ever looked long enough to see it." The room went silent. Then it stood. Applause thundered. On her way out, a young man in a staff lanyard caught her elbow. "My mom's a housekeeper," he said. "She speaks 5 languages. I used to be embarrassed about that. I'm not anymore." Naomi smiled. "Don't ever be ashamed of where you come from. The only shame is staying blind to brilliance." That night, she didn't celebrate. She went home, made tea, and sat with her daughter on FaceTime. "You look taller on that stage," her daughter teased. "I felt taller," Naomi replied. And she did. Not because of the promotion, not because of applause, but because she hadn't changed who she was to fit the role. She brought herself, flaws, grit, scars, and all, and rewrote the rules by being real. So the next time you walk past someone in a uniform, ask yourself, what am I really not seeing? Because brilliance doesn't need permission. Dignity doesn't need a resume. And talent? Talent has no dress code.